This year in baseball, there are lots of teams that I could see improving drastically from 2021. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. I'm going to be going over 5 teams who I could see making drastic improvements from 2021. And these 5 teams that I'm talking about today, I could see them winning close to, if not more than 10 games than last year. And also, no specific order here, I'm just naming off 5 teams today. So with that in mind, let's hop right into the video. First up here, I have the Texas Rangers. Last year, the Rangers finished with 60 wins and 102 losses, and it didn't seem like they had much of a future. They did have a couple of decent prospects in Josh Young and Sam Huff, but they weren't expected to take this team anywhere in 2022. But one good move that Texas did make in 2021 was during the draft where they drafted Jack Leiter 2nd overall. Leiter is a stud. I could see him being a very good major league pitcher. But this offseason is where Texas really made their moves. They made a big splash in free agency, signing Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. These were 2 of the most coveted names on the market this offseason, and really no one was expecting Texas to go all in like they did. On top of Seager and Semien, the Rangers also picked up Jon Gray from Colorado, who could be a very good pitcher while not pitching in the high altitude. They also just traded for Mitch Garver, who has proven to be a relatively decent catcher in the past. So Texas has clearly made some big improvements here. Really shocked a lot of people because everyone thought they were going to be going full rebuild mode. But when I say this team is going to be a sleeper team who could make some drastic improvements, I don't think they're going to be a contender, but I could see them easily winning more than 70 games, maybe 70 to 75. But 70 plus wins for Texas in 2022 would be a more than 10 game improvement from last year. So while I don't think Texas will necessarily compete next year, I think they will be much better. Next up, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks were arguably the worst team in baseball, as they were tied with the Orioles for the worst record in all of baseball, where they won 52 games and lost 110. Last year was just all around disappointing for Arizona. They didn't have much healthy players, and the players they did have healthy didn't play great. Ketel Marte, their best hitter, missed a lot of time, but heading into this year, he is fully healthy, and I really could see him having a bounce-back year. On top of Marte, they also have a couple other decent offensive bats in Dalton Varsho, Josh Rojas, and Pavin Smith. Now, in terms of pitching, they are definitely not great, but they do have someone who I think could be very good this year and be an all-star at that. And his name is Zach Gallen. Gallen last year just simply did not pitch good, but this year I do think he is going to bounce back and pitch like an all-star. And looking at the rest of their pitching staff outside of Zach Gallen, I think they have some pretty decent arms in Merrill Kelly, Luke Weaver, and Madison Bumgarner. So yes, I absolutely do think the D-backs are going to improve from their 52-win season last year. Similar to the Rangers, I still do not think they're going to be great. I don't think they're going to contend, but I could see the Diamondbacks winning 65 to 70 games, which would be a massive improvement from last year. Next up, this one is an obvious choice. I have the San Diego Padres. Heading into 2021, the Padres were arguably the best team in baseball on paper. All around, they had big names, and they were expected to challenge the Dodgers for the National League West crown. But unfortunately for San Diego, things fell apart and they did not come close to the lofty expectations they had. Many of their big-name off-season acquisitions didn't live up to the hype, as Blake Snell and Yu Darvish both had bad years. And towards the end of the season, injuries just piled up for San Diego and they really fell apart down the stretch. But going into 2022, I could see San Diego improving massively from last year's disappointing season. They're going to get Mike Clevenger back from Tommy John surgery, and they will have a healthy Chris Paddock and Dinelson Lamet. So I think their starting rotation is going to improve vastly from last year. And offensively, they still have superstars in Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. On top of that, they also have one of the most underrated stars in baseball today in Jake Cronenworth. On top of that, I also think Trent Grisham is going to have a better year this year. I think he is a really good player, and he just simply didn't play great all of last year. So looking at San Diego, last year they won 79 games. I could see them easily winning 90 games to 95, so I think they will be obviously a lot better than last year. Next up, I have the New York Mets. The Mets made some huge off-season acquisitions to improve off of a disappointing 2021 campaign. They acquired Max Scherzer, Starling Marte, Chris Bassett, Mark Canha, and Eduardo Escobar. And it's not like those signings are all very small signings. All 5 of these players could make a big impact on New York this year. They have one of the best pitching staffs in the game today. That includes probably the best 1-2 punch in baseball in Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom. As I just mentioned, they also have Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker, and Carlos Carrasco. They also have Edwin Diaz closing out games, who is probably one of the better closers in the game today. I don't think he's the best of the best, but I still think he's going to get the job done in the 9th inning. Offensively, they have a lot of firepower in Pete Alonso, Starling Marte, and of course, Francisco Lindor. So on paper, this team is really good. They made a lot of huge improvements this offseason, but to say they're going to be great, it is hard because they're simply the Mets. I mean, this team has shown again and again in the past that with great rosters, they still can be very bad. I just simply can't trust the Mets, but as of right now, on paper, I have to give them their respect. They won 77 games last year. With what they have on paper right now, they could easily win 87 plus. So I had to give them respect and put them on the list, but I wouldn't be surprised to also see them collapse because they're the Mets. The last team in today's video, I have the Miami Marlins. This was a tough choice. I'm going to name a few honorable mentions because it was really close, but I ultimately decided to go with Miami. I chose Miami because I'm so intrigued by just how good the top 3 arms in their rotation are. They have Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, and Trevor Rogers. If healthy, all 3 of these guys are capable of putting up a season with a sub-3 ERA. I really like the front end of Miami's rotation, and I just think pitching is just so important in today's game. Now, I'm not going to lie, offensively, Miami isn't the best. They have Avisail Garcia, who in my opinion was a very underrated offseason signing. They also have players like Jazz Chisholm, Brian Anderson, Jesus Aguilar, Jacob Stallings, Joey Wendell, and Jesus Sanchez. So in terms of offense, they're definitely not good. I do think they will be in the bottom half in terms of offense, but they have some okay names. And when you have as good of a pitching rotation as Miami has, I do think they can significantly improve from last year. Miami only won 67 games last year, so I do think they're going to improve on that. I think they're going to win maybe 75, if they're lucky, 80 games, but I'm not sure if they're going to quite reach the 10-game improvement from last year. So there you have my 5 teams that I think are going to improve drastically from 2021. A couple of honorable mentions here that I wanted to mention at the end are the Royals, the Orioles, and the Tigers. Like I said, it was really a toss-up between the Marlins and those other 3 teams that I mentioned for the last spot. It was really close, but I just ultimately went with Miami because I'm really intrigued by their starting rotation. But anyways, that is going to wrap today's video up. Let me know what you guys think down below, where you agree or disagree. And as always, if you guys do enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to continue to post a lot more videos here as we head closer to 2022. And lastly, I want to thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.